the great white biscuit. Our moniker for the mattress and box spring, the king-sized bed, the often enflowered bower of bliss we call the great white biscuit. Our life raft, our spacecraft, our deep-sea bed where dreams swim and love is made, where old films play, where cats have curled, where we unfurl ourselves after a long day's journey into night. This bountiful broad billow of down and foam, the home plate where we slide, safe and sound, this comforting and comfortable layer cake for two, this soft and so delicious great white biscuit. Welcome to the latest floating poetry broadcast, and thank you for leaning in, some of you for the very first time, some for the second or third time, others of you listening regularly. I'm glad you're on hand for show 145 in my ongoing weekly series, coming to you live from the dreamy coast of Rhode Island. This is your poet and poetorialist Colin Goedecke, a voice for living our days more fully, more alively, more poetically. In broadcast 144, it was a dog's life, a celebration of dogs, a jaunt through the kingdom of canines and things colorful to emotional about these beloved, unconditionally loving beasts. This week we're having pillow talk, getting into bed, over and under the covers, quietly to cozily, to conversationally. Not only those intimate words between lovers, but our resting, reading, sleeping, dreaming, and other time, amidst our blankets, sheets, and pillows, and sometimes other bedfellows. So I've fluffed up cultural commentary, poetry, and inquiry for you, for us, to take in and talk about later, in and out of bed. Let's start with a poem of mine from right here in Westerly, this very month of February. The bed is an envelope you slip inside, stamp with a dream, and send off to the night. Late September 2018, Morristown, New Jersey. Break out the blankets. Deploy the duvets. Autumn has arrived with its soon display of coloring days, soon sachet of crunching leaves. The suddenly racy night air to curl cozily in layers of wool and goose down under, shoulders and all. Perfectly sublime sleeping weather we Northeasterners dream of, happily dream in. So break out the blankets, deploy the duvets. Another autumn is crisping in. Michael Longley, Snow Hole. Falling asleep in the snowscape of the big double bed, I wrap my hand around your hand until they catch fire, and the snow begins to melt, and we sink down and down. The fire and ourselves, how many feet below the morning. Should our fingers burn out at the bottom of the snow hole, smoke will escape up the glass chimney into the bedroom. Thank you, Michael Longley. Winter by Billy Collins. A little heat in the iron radiator, the dog breathing at the foot of the bed, and the windows shut tight, encrusted with hexagons of frost. I can barely hear the geese complaining in the vast sky, flying over the living and the dead, schools and prisons, and the whitened fields. Winter. Thank you, Billy Collins. Central Park West, New York, October 2003. Tonight, a rumba of rain and wind to dance into sleep and dreaming with. Punta Bete, the Yucatan Peninsula, February 2001. morning light. The morning light percolates in through the coconut palms, bleaching the soft white sleeves and shoulders of linen shirts and blouses standing still in a row, bleaching the bed sheets and pillows wrinkled from sleep, burning away the dark, descended ashes of night in the sun-kindled hearth of day. Little air activity overhead there. A little unusual for this hour. Obviously, they might be heading home to bed in a while. From Holland, from Amsterdam, gezellig. The steep stairs have been mounted, all 55 counted. Bags have been unpacked. The duck has been walked. The leopard has been fed. Flowered pajamas have been laid on the bed. A red landscape glows. Fresh blossoms please the nose. Wine has been poured. Sun has been poured. Bamboo leaves rustle through the open door as we return home to Amsterdam. The man who slept with one foot on the floor. I knew him, and he did. His name was Leonardo. And each night, no matter the bed, as he fell asleep, his right leg, bare leg, slid out and craned over the edge of the mattress till the ball and toes of his foot touched the floor, as if to say, stay grounded, or be ready, like a good soldier he once was back in the war, to stand up and suit up on a moment's notice. Or maybe because his left leg wasn't good enough company. But he's no longer here to ask. Both legs and the rest of him having long since left the bed and the floor and his footloose nights on earth. Well, I went to Wikipedia. I'm always curious what they have to say about certain things, so I looked up simply bed. And what I liked was in prehistory. In August 2020, scientists reported the discovery of the oldest grass bedding from at least 200,000 years ago, much older than the oldest previously known bedding. They speculate that insect-repellent plants and ash layers, sometimes due to burned older grass beddings found beneath the bedding, have been used for a dirt-free, insulated base and to keep away arthropods. In ancient history, early beds were little more than piles of straw or some other natural material, a heap of palm leaves, animal skins, or dried bracken. An important change was raising them off the ground to avoid drafts, dirt, and pests. In the Miocene period, lasting from 23 to 5 million years ago, before the emergence of humans, apes began creating beds composed of a sleeping platform, including a wooden pillow. Apes. Ancient Roman mattresses were stuffed with reeds, hay, or wool. Feathers were used toward the end of the Republic. Ancient Romans had various kinds of bed for repose. And I'm wondering what, if we named our different kinds, what they would be. So these are in Latin. Lectus cubicularis, or chamber bed for normal sleeping. Lectus genialis, the marriage bed. Lectus discubitorius, or table bed on which they ate, for they ate while lying on their left sides. Lectus lucubratorius, for studying, and a lectus funebris, or immortualis, on which the dead were carried to the pyre. So, some interesting tidbits for you listeners, and me, to discover, as were many things that I came across, poems and otherwise. From Safe in Bed, The Dangerous Truth by John Thorne, 1989. A mattress on a floor is only a pad. Lifted up and set on springs, it becomes a body, taut but yielding, muscular, resilient. Our bed remains the same stolid, gentle presence, not quite animal and not quite person, that we once tamed so it might take us down to sleep. Each night we climbed under its clothing and pressed ourselves against its skin. At first, feeling wobbly on our perch, we tried to cling to its broad, strong back, But it proved no hard task to find our balance there, easier, in fact, than the one we had just gained on our own unstable feet. Lifted from the floor, a bed becomes more than a place to sleep. The continuous subtle alertness needed to stay aloft there made us conscious, not only of its body, but of our own. Where once tucked snugly under sheet and blanket, we wanted only the safety of that tight embrace. We soon began, in the secrecy of darkness, to shake it loose, inch by inch, to slowly, innocently slide our bodies to the soft, resisting sheets. We did this, not only because the bed's baggy clothing, unlike our own, was so deliciously accommodating to inquisitive limbs, but because mastery had made the bed ours. The space beneath the covers was ours even before our room was, just as now it is the last place we surrender when age or illness creeps up to box us in. Safe in bed. Thank you, John Thorne. Well, here are some slumbering questions for you about pillow talk. Around bed pillows, bedtime, and your relationship and experiences with any or all of these. What does bed represent for you emotionally, and your own bed specifically? Are you someone like me who, however much we enjoy traveling or being elsewhere, what a joy to get back home to our own welcoming, comforting bed? What are your favorite childhood memories about going to bed, or playing in bed, maybe reading under the covers, or hiding from imagined monsters? I was recalling, it's been a long time, decades and decades, since I thought of this. One night, my mother went out, my parents went out and left her brother, my Uncle Noel, who was a character, in charge. He had no clue about taking care of children, but left him to babysit. And she had obviously told him at a certain hour we had to be in bed. Well, the hour suddenly came, and he looked up at the clock, and he said, "Everybody has to get to bed right now." And we protested, not so much about going to bed, but he herded us all upstairs to our respective bedrooms and beds, and made sure we got under the covers as we protested, saying, "But we're still dressed. We haven't taken off our day clothes, our socks. That's it. It didn't matter. You get in that bed right now." And that was the end of that was the end of the story. I wish he was still around. I could be laughing about it with him. That and my parents' trick in the summer after dinner of saying it was time for Lily White's party, which the very first time was amusing, that the party was happening upstairs, only to find out it was quite a ruse to get us to go to sleep in the summer with the lights still out, which was impossible. But they're a couple of my memories. Well, what about having to spend a lot of time in bed recovering from an injury or an illness? And what feelings came up around that, or lasting impressions of that? What do you wear to bed? Or do you sleep naked, au naturel? There's a lot to be said about that from a health perspective, let alone a sensual one. Either way, why? And why not the opposite of the way that you do? Is bed a place you greatly soften yourself, your body, your breathing? What are your nightly rituals before going to sleep or before rising in the morning? What do you drink or listen to or say before you close your eyes or as you reopen them the next day? And what's the story with your pillows? The type and shape of them, the number of them, the way you arrange them. Everybody's got a different choreography, a different selection. I certainly know I love to have my own particular kind of pillow. I even travel with a small one, because you never know what you're going to get when you're traveling. If you have a partner, what's your pillow talk like? Is it lively, soothing, sweet, dreamy? What would you love it to be? Or if you're solo, or with your beloved dog or cat, what's your pillow talk? Or with yourself? Or with the stars? And what about your dreaming? What kind of dreams are you having these days? How vivid are they? Or lucid? Or potent or symbolic. When you awaken in the middle of the night, what does it feel like? For me, it's always very strange because the rest of the world is usually asleep and it's dead quiet. Do you stay still in the dark, or do you get up? And if you do rise from your bed, what do you do in those wee hours? And when you're in bed, near sleep, is that when you feel most real, or most whole, or most peaceful? I'm curious. Reading in the Rain, a poem from Punta Zamach, Tulum, Mexico, one winter. A reader reclines under a warm wool blanket with a good book on a broad bed in a dry room by the ocean's edge, while through half-open windows rain falls all along a dark coast, out across an unlit ocean. Falls for miles through the black, blustering, starless sky, down to over-sodden sand, comforting our lone reader under his blanket in his watertight room between the lines and dry leaves of his lamp-lit book. Yeah, feel into any like experiences you've had of those kinds of places, experiences of delicious snugness. Yes, good feeling places. Go there often. Feel too, as I do, if you will, the joy and association of freshly laundered bed linens. Freshly made. The sheets tumble out of the dryer like warm loaves of bread. Flour-white towels and pillowcases emerge, toasty on the cheek, all leavened for the waiting bed, for the bright-walled bath, for a fresh cycle of sleeping and dreaming, waking and loving. How we listen, don't we, intently in our beds to house sounds and weather and what takes us out of them sometimes, literally or imaginatively. Rumbling. What are the gods rumbling about, raining and thundering about tonight so suddenly? I take my naked body and curiosity out of bed, down the dark stairs and through the front door into the lavender-flashing air to see, where I pause, stand. Let the cool falling drops refresh my face and limbs, remove the day's sultriness. Let the soles of my feet slow kiss the whetstone steps. Listen to the hidden crickets and chorus of tree frogs singing their summer songs unstopped by the pouring. Feel the whole street fast asleep except for one upper light still burning across the way for another possible listener or wanderer. And the restless, blusterous gods astir somewhere far beyond the star-blotting clouds. Rumbling. Again, Wikipedia on pillow. Sometime between 5 and 23 million years ago, tree-dwelling great apes, I mentioned this about the bed, the things they created, began building sleeping platforms, including wooden pillows, to improve their sleep. According to studies on chimpanzees that sleep up to 8 to 9 hours a night using specifically selected ironwood pillows, sturdy pillows enabled great apes to escape being hunted by night predators and not fall out of the trees while asleep. It is likely this was necessitated by the evolution of large energy-consuming brains, though it may also have led to longer periods of REM sleep that in turn increased their cognitive capacity. Well, imagine that. Picture that. Creating those things as they did. Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt, the earliest recorded use of the modern human device, dates back to the civilizations of Mesopotamia around 7000 BC. During this time, only the wealthy used pillows. The number of them symbolized status, so the more pillows one owned, the more affluence they held. Has that been mirrored in our Western culture? Maybe, by some. And here's one last note from there on ancient China. Chinese pillows were traditionally solid, though sometimes used with a softer fabric over them. Over many Chinese dynasties, they were made from a wide range of materials, including bamboo, jade, porcelain, wood, and bronze. Ceramic pillows became the most popular, and the use first appeared in the Sui dynasty between 581 and 618. Well, I don't know if you've ever slept on one of those. I can't quite imagine it, having a good sleep on a bronze or a ceramic pillow. No, I'm staying with what I've got, down pillows. Well, I went back, as you may be doing as we're going along here, into memory from my married life in Manhattan. And what a comfort a pillow provided, well, more than once in different ways, but this particular night, January 2012. Resting my head on your pillow. While you were gone, I lay my head on the pillow where your head always rests, where your dreams nest, where your familiar wood musk scent makes you at least faintly present here, near me in the night dark house, in our not wholly felt bed, while you were gone. Well, here's a poem for the young girl, now young lady, she's the younger daughter of dear friends, the Dugans, and one awash and still in fabulous freckles, ocean of freckles, which I love. I wish I had myself. Always wanted them, wanted lots of them. The jar of freckles for Evelyn Dugan. Your mother takes it gently in hand from a hidden corner of the kitchen cupboard, behind the honey, tea, and tin of homemade cookies, and brings it to your bedroom once in a while after you, in your 4-year-oldness and goodness, fall asleep, sprinkling it ever so lightly and quietly over the bridge of your nose and cheeks, to add to the confetti of copper already there, replacing those freckles that have fallen from your face to the pillow during tossing or turning dreams, each speckle as precious as stardust, loose dots of delightfulness Mom will collect and place inside the moon-blue glass jar and take back to that secret corner of the kitchen cupboard. I rippled that out to the Dugans and Evelyn. That was back in 2007 when she was 4. So you can do the math. Where she is now. Well, do you know about the pillow book? In Japanese, that's the Makura no Soshi, circa 1000. Title of a book of reminiscences and impressions by the 11th century Japanese court lady Sei Shonagon. The Encyclopedia Britannica that I got this from says the title was generic, and whether she herself used it is not known, but other diaries of the Heian period indicate that such journals may have been kept by both men and women in their sleeping quarters, hence the name. The entries are divided under such headings as, quote, amusing things and, quote, vexatious things. So, the pillow book, yes. I want to dip into that. Taste of what life was at the time. After the pillow book, a poem by Peter Pereira. You call me to the bath, where by evening light before bed I rub the ointment into your immaculate back. I placed my hand between the wings of your scapula, where you cannot reach, cannot see, the arc of your life revealed in its pattern of coffee-colored spots, and hover there a while, remembering how we watched the lover read the manuscript painted on the skin of his beloved, how he pressed the words to his chest and face, and cried out. The arteries in my palm open, their warmth rising between us as I massage you, neither sexual nor umbilical, this connection. You trusting your back to me, and me with no deceit, only salve, only unguent, only balm. Thank you, Peter Pereira, after the pillow book from his collection, What's Written on the Body. Poem of mine from Cobble Hill, Brooklyn, April 2018, when I was a poet in residence there for a time, and I was several different times there, wonderfully, happily. The Red Sheets. "Do you have a girlfriend?" asks Mariola, the Polish housekeeper, as she pulls fresh sheets from the linen closet for the undressed bed. "Because I can put these red sheets on for you." "Not right now," I say, smiling inside at the thought, at the gesture. It's just me. What are my other choices? The funami. What I find myself in bed with you, amid the white billows of downy pillows you call your foo-foos, that surround us, that you arrange between surges and swells beneath my bow, me beneath your stern, as we ride our salty bodies through another wild waterspout of loving. The funami. From the Adirondacks, from a lower Ausable Lake, that you may know of, the High Peaks region, Keene Valley, July 2015. Ever green. The lake is all ours, all reflected stillness to canoe through, to dip our wooden brushes into, through wavering Miro-like shade shapes of silver, dark purple, mirror black, to drift through moments near hieroglyphic rock faces, mythic limbs of fallen trees forming sinuous, submersive sculptures, to float back and forth between each other, two natives paddling silverly into the wilderness, into the harmony, two explorers threading an alpine fjord, two romantics, one serenading, the other echoing, two lovers pausing to join warm loins, limbs, as our daughter is dreaming too loudly. Just listen, her eyelids are fluttering like butterflies. What about the thunder, I say? What about the dispatches from the police car parked outside, or me rolling over like a whale? She tells me there's a leaf falling and grazing the downstairs window, or it could be glass cutters, diamonds, thieves working their hands toward the latch. She tells me our son is breathing too quickly. Is it pneumonia? Is it the furnace suddenly pumping monoxides through the house? So when my wife says sleep, she means a closing of the eyes, a tuning of the ears to ultra frequencies. It is what always happens when there are children, the bed becoming at night a listening post, each little ting for warning disaster. Downstairs there is the sound of something brushing against something else, and I try to listen as my wife might listen. Insects, I say, dust on a tabletop, maybe a knife's edge against the palm. But she tells me it's only the African violet on the windowsill putting out another flower, and falls luxuriously into a dream of being awake and vigilant. So the house grows noisier. There are clicks in the woodwork. There are drips, raps, clunks, things to make sense of, make benign. My son and daughter are sleeping calmly, and the stairs, yes, are creaking. The wind, I think, or maybe two men. Where's the beaker of acid, the bowling ball, the war hoop I learned in 2nd grade? So this is what it's like when there's no one left but you to love and defend. Outside there are cats in a fight, and they remind me too much of babies crying. Then the bottle thrown against the stoop, the sound of something delicate shattered. My wife stirs. Be glad, she says, sound doesn't carry far, that you don't hear the whole of it. Cries in the night, children in other cities, hurts, silences. And she's right. I can't hear the whole of it, or else I hear too much and it's noise, or I make it noise because it's too much. So I begin homing in on something around me, something distinct, my wife's breathing, a window's rattle. Outside grass is lengthening in the dark, and sap running up the flume of the maple. Do I hear it? And how the stars must be wheeling. And in the far room, my children's hearts are keeping time, for them, for us. We have begun to listen in earnest. Thank you for that. New to me, Gregory Janakian, late at night in bed. Marcus Aurelius, on how to motivate yourself to get out of bed in the morning and go to work. He said in his great book, Meditations, you don't love yourself enough, or you'd love your nature too, and what it demands of you. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do? Or is this what I was created for, to huddle under the blankets and stay warm? Marcus Aurelius. Mother's Day by Dorian Laux. I passed through the narrow hills of my mother's hips one cold morning and never looked back until now, clipping her tough toenails, sitting on the bed's edge, combing out the tuft of hair at the crown where it ratted up while she slept, her thumbs locked into her fists, a gesture as old as she is, her blanched knees fallen together beneath a blue nightgown. The stroke took whole pages of words, random years torn from the calendar, and the names of roses leaning over her driveway, Cadenza, Great Western, American Beauty. She can't think, can't drink her morning tea, do her crossword puzzle in ink. She's afraid of everything, the sound of the front door opening, light falling through the blinds, pulls her legs up so the bright bars won't touch her feet. I help her with the buttons on her sweater. She looks hard at me and says the word sleeve. Exactly, I tell her, and her face relaxes for the first time in days. I lie down next to her on the flowered sheets and tell her a story about the day she was born, head first into a hard world, the Great Depression, shanties, Hoovervilles, railroads, and unions. I tell her about Amelia Earhart, and she asks, air, and points to the ceiling, asks, heart, and points to her chest. Yes, I say. I sing Cole Porter songs. Brother, can you spare a dime? When I recite lines from Gone with the Wind, she sits up and says, potatoes. And I say, right again. I read her Sandburg, some Frost, and she closes her eyes. I say yes, yes, and tuck her in. It's summer. She's tired. No one knows where she's been. Mother's Day, Dorian Laux. Thank you, from her collection, The Book of Men. Undress by Ruby Robinson. There is an ash tree behind this house. You can see it from our bedroom window. If you stare at it for long enough, you'll see it drop a leaf. Stare at it now, you said, and notice the movement, the moment a leaf strips away from its branch, giving a twirl. Consider this. The ash tree unclothes itself octoberly. From beside our bed, fingering the curtain, observe the dark candles at the top of that tree, naked and alert, tending to the breeze. A sheet of ice between the rooftops and this noiseless sky has turned the air inside out. Black veins of branches shake against the blue screen on which they hang. Small mammals are hibernating in pellets of warm air underground. But in spite of the cold, this ash tree does not shy from shrugging off its coat, sloping its nude shoulders to the night. So you said, undo, unbutton, unclasp, slowly remove. Let down your hair, breathe out. Stand stark in this room until we remember how not to feel the chill. Stand at the window, lift your arms right up like a tree. Yes, like that. Watch leaves drop. Thank you, Ruby Robinson. Charles Simich's poem, Henri Rousseau's Bed. I took my bed into the forest. How peaceful, I thought, when the full moon came out. The white stag nibbled my pillow. The night bird sang in the hand of the huge hairy ape. It was not the bird of paradise. It was a gypsy with a mandolin. I had to run naked with my bed, knock at the prison gate, ask for their darkest solitary. They obliged, rats and all. The executioner's lovely daughter coming to visit on tiptoes. Sad bread she brought, the world's saddest. Her beauty bandaged my eyes. No small feat to get that bed out of there on Insomnia's bicycle. Like a worm crossing the Brooklyn Bridge, I found myself in a philosopher's kitchen. It was cold and white, as at the pole. Snow kept falling into empty pots. I could have used a team of dogs to pull my bed, a queue of sleepwalkers. At the late movies, where I found myself next, bedded under the screen. The great Egyptian-style theater empty. One could hear the wind between stars. In the picture, a lonely veiled woman clutched a handkerchief to her breast. Are you the gypsy? I shouted. And if so, where's your mandolin? No, she replied. I'm the executioner's lovely daughter. I'm on my way to the Galapagos Islands. I need tortoise glasses to look for my love, who is asleep in the dark forest. Fanciful. Thank you, Charles Simich. What about that passage we make from wherever toward our bed or a bed? Here through a curtain of time, place, nature, and feeling. A poem from East Hampton, New York, out by the ocean, 1 June. Crossing the red brick terrace to bed. the incense of honeysuckle and half-moon, the night-dark stars of ivy, the upholstered shapes of hedges and cedars, the cool midnight stillness, the nearness of the sea of the summer. Marjorie Hunt going to bed in the sea. I am still as a gull settles in my shoulder, another on my face, leaves my lashes a black milk of foam. My long braids grow on the waves, breathing sea sparks. Now no man's eyes can part my sleep. Dressed all this day's sun in a net of wings, and all this moon in a veil of tides. From Greece, from Corycia on the Aegean island of Kea, Mesimeri, siesta. Sun-caked white walls, cascades of bougainvillea, scents of sweet basil, jasmine, geranium that plume as you pass through the quiet hours. Sea blue shutters closed. Stillness. Even the cicadas slighter, the sleeping bodies of the islanders lighter. The passage of time slower. Mesimeri. What if we took more siestas, more naps, dear listeners? Imagine the good effects of that. There's a book you might find interesting, especially if you're an insomniac. It's called Sleep Demons, an insomniac's memoir by Bill Hayes, Hayes, on REM, the Poetics of Yawns, and Maurice Sendak's antidote to insomnia. I just wanted to pull out a line or two from that. Is that he said, if there's such a thing as an insomnia gene, my dad passed it on to me along with green eyes and Irish melancholy. If dreaming represents a separate biological state, one that can be explosively visual yet is free of physical suffering, it sounds like heaven, and in a way it is. Dreaming led early humans to conceive of a spirit that leaves the body during sleep and travels to fantastic places, which in turn inspired notions of a soul and an afterlife. And it was then, as it was then, heaven is still widely envisioned as an eternal good dream. Hell's both a nightmare and, as Dante imagined, the inferno, a never-ending state of sleeplessness. When Maurice Sendak last visited, he gave me a good piece of advice, though he didn't realize it at the time. He said, you know what I do when I can't sleep? I sit up in bed, push the curtains back, and pull up the window shade. Maurice, who'd had a run of serious illnesses, including a major heart attack, said he used to feel frightened and anxious when he couldn't sleep, but now appreciates an aspect of it. The night air makes me feel safe, real. He inhaled slowly, as though savoring a whiff he'd brought with him. I'm not afraid to die. The one thing I will miss most, though, is air at night. Life coming through the window. Like that. Hope you like that. David K. Randall's book, Dreamland, Adventures in the Strange Science of Sleep, also very interesting. What actually happens while you sleep and how it affects your every waking moment. We are living in an age when sleep is more comfortable than ever and yet more elusive. He said most of us will spend a full third of our lives asleep, and yet we don't have the faintest idea of what it does for our bodies and our brains. Lions and gerbils sleep about 13 hours a day. Tigers and squirrels nod off for about 15. At the other end, elephants typically sleep 3.5 hours at a time, which seems lavish compared to the hour and a half of shut-eye the average giraffe gets each night. Humans need roughly 1 hour of sleep for every 2 they're awake, and the body innately knows when the ratio becomes out of whack. I can attest to that. I'm sure maybe you can. Well, they talk about the Victorian era and sleep and what that was about, the change in living standards that came with modernity, but also electric lights, TV, and other kinds of entertainment that have thrown our sleep patterns into chaos. Work has morphed into a 24-hour fact of life, bringing its own standards and expectations when it comes to sleep. Even though it's ingrained in our cultural ethos now as something that can be put off, dosed with coffee, or ignored. And yet maintaining a healthy schedule of it is one of the best forms of preventive medicine. He said, as I spent more time investigating the science of sleep, I began to understand that these strange hours of the night underpin nearly every moment of our lives. The electric bed. from La Habra, California, 6 Februaries back, about where we can travel in bed. You turn it on by unplugging yourself, by going dark into sleep, by connecting to the grid of your dreaming world, where everything is electric, is wildly charged, flows with fast and slow current, with high and low voltage, positives and negatives, generates heat and light of curious and compelling kinds, conducts your subconscious through flashing scenes, encounters, mysteries, marvels, activates deep and secret circuits of intuition, precognition, sends signals, powerful signals through the wires to your waking life. The electric bed. There's a Mark Strand poem I will save for another time, but I can point you to it. It's from his collected poems. It's called Dreams. Lovely poem. It's a little on the, longer for the moment side, but we'll carry on. We'll get to that another time, or you can get to that. I did muse as I sourced material, as you know that I like to do, and summoning thoughts about our theme in relation to nature and the motifs and metaphors of other themes in this theme. The hills, Crested Butte, Colorado, autumn, 1992. The hills. The hills are brown, soft, sleeping women, dusted with aspen yellow. And I in my bed again, Hilda Morley. Last night, tossed in my bed, the sound of the rain turned me around, a leaf in a dried gully. From side to side, the sound of the rain took me apart, open to, what is it? Breath caught in memory of a deep sweetness, that sound, unceasing, delicate, the wetness running through my body. It might be nighttime in a forest hut, the rain constant, in little rivulets, splashing, at times uncertain, safe in each other's arms, the rain sheltering us, a depth opening, bottomless to a terrible sweetness, the small rain shaking us in our bed, the terror, whispering, end of a season, wind from the west. Papoosed, swaddled nakedly, natively, in soft sheets, warm blankets, snug with the large maternal body of the morning bed where I birth out of a deep, dreaming sleep on a cool and quiet country spring morning. And with a nod of a kind to Valentine's Day, by the way, yesterday, if you celebrated it, here's this poem by Paul Carroll, Valentine. Our matchbox bedroom in the loft above your sculpture factory turns magical at times behind its dark blue druid door. Last night, inside you, sweetheart, it felt as if I were coming from the soul itself. And that Indian summer Sunday afternoon a year ago, when the bed became a meadow of purple thistles, the honey hidden at the bottom of the stem, farm kids know how to find for the sweetest suck of all. And sometimes in the winter when the room turns into a cornell box filled with the everyday miracles, soap bubble pipe and thimble wooden rabbits and old tan magazine illustrations of the zodiac, or turns into an igloo in which the only place to go is to burrow here below the yellow blanket and the pillows to the South Pacific of ourselves. And then those mornings on vacation, gentle as the feathers of a light spring rain, and at the same time hard like the beak of a hawk. You are where I belong. Beautiful. Paul Carroll, thank you, Valentine, from The Garden of Earthly Delights. Sustenance by Barbara Crooker. The sky hangs up its starry pictures, a swan, a crab, a horse. And even though you're 300 miles away, I know you see them too. Right now, my side of the bed is empty, a clear blue lake of flannel. The distance yawns and stretches. It's hard to remember we swim in an ocean of great love, so easy to fall into bickering like little birds at the feeder fighting over proso and millet, unaware of how large the bag of grain is, a river of golden seeds that the harvest was plentiful, the corn is in the barn, and whenever we're hungry, a dipper full of just what we need will be spilled. Sustenance. Thank you, Barbara Crooker. That's from her collection, Small Rain. And now to our last few sharings, musings for now. Pablo Neruda, Sonetos de Amor. And now you're mine. Rest with your dream in my dream. Love and pain and work should all sleep now. The night turns on its invisible wheels, and you are pure beside me as a sleeping amber. No one else, love, will sleep in my dreams. You will go, we will go together over the waters of time. No one else will travel through the shadows with me. Only you, ever green, ever sun, ever moon. Your hands have already opened their delicate fists and let their soft drifting signs drop away. Your eyes closed like two gray wings, and I move after, following the folding water you carry that carries me away. The night, the world, the wind spin out their destiny. Without you, I am your dream. Only that. And that is all. Muchas gracias, Pablo Neruda. When the Day Has Been Decanted. Poem from Central Park, New York, April 2001. When the day has been decanted. When the house is settled for the night, and the dinner dishes are washed and dried. When the lights in the neighboring apartments are turned out and the moon is turned on, we unfold ourselves in bed to talk and read side by side, then sink down into sleep when the day has been decanted. And last for now, friends, till we're together again over these airwaves, the watching winter moon. The moon eyes me overtly, peers so brightly, intently through the bare oak branches into my room and bed, at my face and hands, shoulders and bare chest, blanket-covered waist, warm legs. Studies the open books of Stroud and Rumi poetry waiting to be read before sleep. And the lilting way I take in a few pages of beauty, O'Donoghue's lyric Celtic musing. Doesn't blink when I return its persistent, insistent gaze. Watches on in white silence long after my lamp has been switched off and my eyes have folded into dreams. Well, I thank you again, each and all, for leaning in. Maybe some of you propped cozily on your couch or in your easy chair or spread out in your bed. Thank you for leaning and feeling in, for sharing these shows with others, and for those of you who send along affirmations, as well for those good souls out there who send along greatly welcome and helpful gifts of thanks, donations that go to support the work I faithfully and freely do to nourish and uplift you and others. If, by the way, there's a theme of interest you'd like me to speak to, send an email, colin@thepoetorialist.com. I'd love to know what your experience was of this show on Pillow Talk. And if you are sending along a contribution, you can do so by Venmo to Fivefold, Fivefold, at pipeline.com, or by PayPal to me to the same email, or by check and regular mail to me at P.O. Box 1032, Westerly, Rhode Island, 02891, or simply by credit or debit card through my site, thepoetorialist.com, and the Donate tab. Patrons can sponsor or host me as a working poet in residence in an agreed place in the U.S. or elsewhere in the world to create a new flight of poetic art and dedicate it to them. Email me to explore. Meanwhile, you can hear all the broadcasts online on YouTube on the floating poetry playlist. I hope you'll lean in soon again. Till then, dear listeners, Enjoy your bedtiming, your pillow talking, the joys of laying back to rest, to sleep, to dream, to love, to feel at home and ease between your sheets. Goodbye for now, and good spirits. Bonne nuit, buenas noches. Calinita, sogni d'oro.